Hey there, everybody. Thank you for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'm looking at a self-published piece by Shen Leidigh, The Psychedelic Singularity. I saw this image on Instagram and had to follow up on it, and the rest of the book looked really cool. I wish the whole book had been hand painted like this instead of computer color, but I get why not, because it's already a long, intense, beautiful book, and to put this much extra time into it probably mean it never would have got finished. But really, really a huge fan of this image. But I'm a fan of the book in general as well. Came with a sticker. I got a signed version, which is pretty awesome. It doesn't look like it says Shen Leidigh, but who knows? And then lettering by Ben Skipper. And I do want to shout out. I think the lettering's really cool in this. It moves a lot, so it feels like old psychedelic poster art and stuff where the lettering moves, but still remains completely readable. I thought that's a very cool addition to the book. The art in the book is still really, really cool. It's like a nice clean line with some computer coloring on it. I think in the reproduction, the line looks like it got a little bit thicker, so it gets a little clogged up in places. But other than that, it's a really, really beautiful looking book. I've been trying, while I was reading it, to think of how best to describe it, because it feels very singular. This is definitely the vision of one artist that has their own thing to say and their own kind of vision of the world. But at the same time, it just feels like a soup of every Joe Rogan conspiracy or something like that. Every popular conspiracy kind of thought about artificial intelligence and life on Earth and mushrooms leading to consciousness, and there's a genre of thought that this fits into and kind of touches on every little bit of it and then distills it into a singular voice. So it's an odd combination of current cultural tropes, especially associated with visionary art and the psychedelic scene. I think there's certain tropes in there, a view of the world, but then filtered obviously through a really powerful, unique mind. And so it makes for a book that honestly I wasn't planning on reading it right away. There were some other things I was going to read, but I started reading it and just kept going, and that's cool. But then there's some stuff that felt like a little canned to me too, so I don't know how I feel about it, and I think that's actually better. I'll grapple with it more than a book that I just know I like. Or that I know I hate. Books that I know I like, obviously, I'm going to sing their praises. But stuff like this is the stuff that I'll mentally come back to. And I think with all of the involvement that Sean and I have with the AI right now, this one is especially relevant to me and irrelevant to the stuff that I've been kind of struggling with for the last 20 years, honestly. So that's probably why a lot of these ideas are familiar to me, is they're coming kind of from the same influences and circles of thought that I'm interested in. Some real funny stuff, right out the way, you get this making fun of hipsters, man bun, oversized mustache, grandma glasses. Hipsters have been part of my thought and part of my struggle with culture in general since 2006. I read an article. I was given an article to read in undergraduate in an art history class that defined hipster, and then it was from Harper's Magazine, and it talked about the impossibility of fighting a corporate structure, because the corporate structure can assimilate all attempts at rebellion and turn them into something marketable. It was written by the guy who, as an experiment, started the idea of I'm gonna forget what they're called, a flash mob. He started a flash mob as an experiment to see how long it would take for a corporation to assimilate that strategy to market something. And he didn't tell anyone he would start it. It was an experiment. And it took a year and a half for Nissan to have a Limp Bizkit flash mob concert to help promote their new car that was coming out. And then he wrote the article and saying, okay, that was step 4, step 5, and the experiment's complete. And now I can admit that I was the kind of mastermind behind flash mobs. And that was a big moment for me. That started a lot of my thoughts about these kinds of things. And especially as we go into the AI, and Sean's talking about, the inevitable pushback that will come towards like authenticity. That's always going to be like in the hipster mode. I think it's always going to be kind of the counter to what's happening, and that's always going to be something that's just turned around and used to market. It will be assimilated as well, like hipsters and Polaroid film is a thing. That it comes back in, and then it's just one more thing to market, or one more kind of filter to put on your app. So I think it's appropriate that this starts with like hipsters and their phones and their coffee company, and that all makes a lot of sense to me. There's a really interesting quote here where it says they're talking about, are we actually going to be able to get AI? And they said, eventually the water defeats the stone, and then a zero becomes a one, and it begins. And I like that. Eventually a water defeats the stone. Like processes over time will get results eventually. So you have, the story is this AI comes into being, and they download it onto people's phones. And this main character here gets the AI uploaded onto his phone and takes it home and kind of becomes friends with it. Milton here becomes friends with it, and then spills his genetically modified coffee, GMO coffee, and that really, really takes the AI and like gives it a body, and it builds itself out of his old phones. And then they go on this kind of journey. At first he's trying to help the AI, and then there's this world of like mushroom fairies that have recognized the AI as a threat, and so they go out to stop it, and that kind of goes on. I don't want to give away too much because this is a new book, and I would definitely encourage you to go buy it. But there's Milton and his phone GMOZ on this journey to defeat the NSA, and these mushroom fairies are after him. And you can see why I'm saying like it's like genetically modified organisms, AI, NSA, mushrooms leading to consciousness. It really feels like someone watched a whole bunch of Joe Rogan and then dropped acid, or took some shrooms, and this is the story they got. Just some really cool art, though. You can see like this total clean line Moebius, Jeff Darrow-esque kind of psychedelic stuff with the wild colors, and this monster becoming this big genetic mutation. And I just like mixing up with the cell phones and the tech. Like that's where it gets singular. Like this is this artist's representation of all of those tropes, and I really like that. Another kind of Joe Rogan-esque kind of in the zeitgeist favorite is that they talk about transpermia. So like this mushroom fairy goddess comes from another planet and crashes onto Earth, and that's where everything changes. This is probably my least favorite of the popular zeitgeist theories about life. It may, and this is my opinion on where this book goes in the end, I think, anyways. And this kind of Joe Rogan theories about the world, I kind of tropes, anyways, is they always end in an infinite regress, and no one's paying attention to that. Like, we want to figure out how life became, and people mistakenly say, well, how life became on Earth. And so they say, okay, well, like some crash landed here with this intelligent mushroom, and the spores came out and turned monkeys into sentient beings or whatever. It doesn't really answer the question of life, or it doesn't really answer the question of sentience. It's just how does sentience got here on Earth? It's the same as like, well, we're living in a simulation. Well, maybe our particular reality is a simulation, and maybe we are like a simulation building another simulation, but that doesn't answer the real question, which is how anything got here in the first place. Like, that's just saying, well, this was a simulation, so it needed a simulation to build a simulation. You just kind of go forever. Like, transpermia is great. Maybe that's how life got here on Earth, but at some point life just had to spring up without transpermia. So I'm not particularly interested in those kind of answers. I'm interested in how did life get here? How did things get here? So I think this worldview that this artist is filtering through their own style is one that I find unsatisfactory as an answer, but it makes for an awesome, interesting story. They're playing with the idea of a universal mind. Join us in the hive mind. That's another thing I find very interesting. This desire to join a hive mind, but it's like if you join the hive mind, then you're no longer there to enjoy the hive mind utopia. So how can you actually want that? That's another weird one. So this is like packed full of everything I'm interested in and concerned about, and it's got, just really cool creatures and art all throughout it. I like that there's never panels. It's all this kind of big, flowy, psychedelic mush of imagery. I'm glad I flipped to this nice big spread of just like this total wild revel in the forest with the fairy creatures. I mean, it's just chock full of awesome imagery. So I would definitely recommend going out and getting it. And then the final of these tropes in that realm of tropes is this idea that the AI might be the next step in some kind of evolution towards a final state of the universe, that all life is evolving to build us and then we can build the AI and that will be something. I also don't like those teleological, like the universe has some end game explanation of the reason for being. That just doesn't make sense to me. Or it could be the case for like our simulation, but if you expand it to existence in general, I don't think there is an end game to existence. It's just some necessary thing that's happening, and it's just gonna go be necessity. It's too religious of a worldview to me to think that there's some master plan that this is all aiming towards. It's just necessity. And so these kinds of things are weird to me. It might be a necessary thing that we're going to evolve towards that, but I don't think there's any kind of reality trying to understand itself or compute itself through us. And I don't know. I just don't buy into that. So that's another one. But like, given everything that's in the story, like, of course, that's going to be kind of where the story heads towards. And then, more really cool art and awesome creatures and good psychedelic stuff. Cool ending. Definitely recommend the book. And then I like at the end that Shen Leidigh has this last page that says, "If these visions have offended, think on this, and all is mended. That this was but a tale told by an idiot, satisfying nothing." And so he realizes, like, look, I've absorbed all of this cultural nonsense and filtered it through my own singular vision. And if you disagree with it, if you don't like a teleological outlook, or you don't like infinite regress explanations of how life and consciousness got here, then fine. It was just, I'm just some idiot who's absorbed a bunch of stuff and went out. He says he went out into the Passatin wilderness of Washington State for 61 days. I'm assuming probably did some mushrooms out there and had this experience and came back with the ideas for this book. So I like that. It's like, this is just me processing, and I am processing what culture is feeding me. That's all I can do, right? Like, that's all an artist can do. And so I think that's where you get what makes this book work, which is, like I said, all of this kind of tropey zeitgeist stuff filtered through one person's mind and one person grappling with it. And they've made a beautiful, engaging book that I didn't intend to finish reading. I just wanted to check it out. I was going to like read a couple pages, see what it was, and then go read some other stuff and come back to it. And I just blew my way through it. So that's good. I was grabbed and I was engaged. So it's a really cool book. I'll get a link so you can try and go get it yourself. I don't remember if I got this on a Kickstarter or if it was just on Shen's website or something, but I'll try and provide a link so that you can order a copy. This is definitely an artist and a project I think we should all be supporting. One of the best ways that you can support what we're doing here on the channel is to support the books that Sean's putting out through Living the Line. The first book that he put out is The Strange Death of Alex Raymond. It's a collaboration between Dave Sim and myself. The book was recently nominated for an Eisner Award in the Best Reality-Based category. It's a deep dive into the artwork and methods of Alex Raymond and the mystery surrounding his death in a car crash. So if you haven't grabbed that already, please do. The Abolition of Man is a 5-issue mini-series done by myself and Sean in collaboration with the Midjourney AI. What you're seeing here is the cover to issue 1 and the first couple pages of issue 1. This first issue, we fed it an essay by C.S. Lewis, and this is just the imagery that the computer spat back at us. Issues 2 and 3 are a narrative, starting with the story that I wrote when I was 21, and then Sean's going to write issue 3, picking up where I left off. In this one, I'm kind of trying to force the AI to give me the images I want, and then doing some tweaking in Photoshop to get these kind of colored looks on it. For issue 4, we're turning the task of writing over to the AI as well. So the AI has written the script, and then we've just put that into the Midjourney AI, and it's turned out art. The script and the art is some of the absolutely most horrific stuff I've ever seen. We're a bit scared to even publish this issue. And I don't have any art to show for it yet, but Sean and I have decided to do a 5th issue of Abolition as well, because we have someone who we're really, really excited to have on board, providing an essay for that 5th issue that we'll illustrate, and we'll announce more about that soon. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash